I just recently did a project where I made some charcuterie boards by weaving two pieces of wood together. I'm fairly pleased with how it came up, but there are several issues that I ran into that I want to try and do better. So what I'm going to do is I got me some better wood. So I'm going to use some cherry and some walnut, and I'm going to make the strips out of some white oak, and we'll see if we can do a better job. I'm really trying to master this wood weaving thing, so I'd love to have you join me try and figure it out. So what we're going to do is make a woven wood charcuterie board. I've done one of these before. It's really cool. Basically, you take two pieces of wood. In this case, I've got a piece of walnut and a piece of cherry. And you cut them in such a way that you can glue them back together that it looks like they're woven together. You also have to, between the cuts, you have to have a strip which makes up for the curve of the saw, which adds a third element, color element into it. I've got this white oak, so I'll be making the strips out of white oak. So the first thing we do is cut the strips so we have them available. I'm going to cut a few. I'm going to cut them at 1/16 of an inch. One of the challenges I had last time was I used a feather board as a stop for cutting my strips, and the problem was they weren't consistent. So I bought this fancy jig which you can use to perfectly get your wood in the exact spot you want it. I've got it lined up, I think. Let me make sure, at 1/16 of an inch. So what I'll do, I'll just cut 1/16. I'm not going to cut them all now because the first time I do it, I want to make sure I've got the right distance, because you got the saw curve, and when you turn, it makes the thing a little wider and all that. So I'm going to cut a few and use those, and then if they work, I'll do fine. If they come up small or big, I'll make adjustments. So here we go. So the next step is to prepare the wood for cutting. What we do, I created a pattern. This is a very simple pattern. It's just a bunch of sine waves sitting on top of each other. What you do is you take the pattern, you take a piece of carbon paper, which actually still exists. So you put the carbon paper down, you put the pattern down. Now I found what you need to do is at least decide what's your baseline. So like in my case, I'm going to take this top left corner and guarantee that that is what's going to be right, because when I start copying this, I'm going to want the exact same thing on the other board. You have to actually put the pattern on both boards, because as part of the process, what you do is, you're swapping back and forth between boards. So you need the pattern to be on both, because you'll see. Once you have the pattern on, you take a pen and you just draw it in. The trick is to, of course, make sure you get every one of them. I'm making this one is, like I say, this simple overlay of sine waves makes this pretty weave. You can obviously do any design you want. There's all sorts of ways you can cut wood and glue it back together, and so it looks cool. I actually have an idea in honor of the recent Starship flight from SpaceX. I actually had an idea of doing something with curve for an Earth and a curve for a flight, kind of do an honorarium for that. So any kind of design you want to come up with, you can do and cut and put back together. Okay, I think that's got this one. So let's, and we're going to put this back here. Just make sure, like we said, use our baseline corner so we know that this is exactly the same as the other one. Okay, so now you can see we have the pattern. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. I'm going to mark this baseline, BL, so I know which corner is the baseline. If I need to know that later, it's easy to get lost when you're switching these back and forth. All right, so now I just got to draw it in again. All right, so what we're going to do is start cutting here. We'll just start working our way through the cuts. I've got a 1/4 inch blade on the bandsaw, so it should let me do plenty of curves. Okay, now that we've got it cut, now we just pull it apart. All right, we use this thing, we pull the pieces apart, pull off the tape. Now the first thing I do is go ahead and swap top to bottom, because if you forget, it makes a real mess. So go ahead and swap that. Okay, so now we get a strip. I'm soaking the strips in water using a custom built tinfoil based soaking pan. You soak them for a while enough to get them pliant. So you soak them long enough to get them all pliant. I then dry them off. I got a paper towel back there. I dry them off on to get a little bit of the water down to make sure you don't have problems with gluing. And basically all you do is you put glue on. Make sure you put plenty of glue on. There's lots of surface area here. That's all right. Alrighty. So this here, pull them together. Kind of let it work with it. Let it slide it around in there so it can find its place. Because it has to shift a bit for the whole thing to work. So, then that, pull this together. There we go. And then you just kind of clamp it. Now what I do is I put a block of the wood in that's the same height. It just cut off a piece of the walnut. And I use that to make sure I don't clamp it any more than the amount it's supposed to go. Because one of the problems I had the first time was actually the two pieces came out different widths because I was just clamping them together. That's the reason I'm using this clamping frame this time, using these blocks. Actually, I should be doing. You got to work at making sure it's as flat as possible. So when it glues up, it comes out flat. Move on to this one. This one in same way. Make sure you give it. Oh, shoot. And looky here, we have woven wood. Isn't that cool? So it turned out a fair bit better than it did last time I tried it. There's still some issues I'm running into. The alignment is much better between the things, so I'm very pleased with that. It's much flatter. I still have some issues with flatness, but I'm very, very happy. I think it turned out really nicely. I am now going to sand the fool out of it and make it pretty. Okay, I've sanded them down basically flat. I just put them on the belt sander 60 grit. I slapped a little bit of 150 on it, but I'm going to have to go back and resand the whole thing for finish. What I'm going to do is put a border around them. I'm going to use this walnut for the one that's got the cherry on the outside, and I'm going to use this cherry for the one that's got the walnut on the outside, and that should be pretty. I'm just going to go over there and start working on the miter saw. There we go. That's that. Okay, I sanded the whole thing down, sanded all even, just cleaned the whole thing up, sanded it with the finish sander, sanded it down like a 220 grit, put some water on it, bring up the fiber, sand it back down 220. So it's good and sanded now. They're looking really nice. So now I'm just gonna put some tung oil on it, finish it up, which should pretty right up. If you're gonna use these for eating on, if you're actually going to put charcuterie on or something, you may want to consider doing a food safe finish. You can get that pretty much anywhere, but you're welcome to do that. I'm just using tung oil, I've got it. And actually I'm going to do something else with these. So, oil on there. Life is good. Oh my gracious, these are going to be pretty. Look at that, look at that, look at that coming out. Oh my gracious, gracious, gracious me. Well, looky here, we've created two beautiful charcuterie boards. One of them is surrounded by the cherry. It's got the cherry and the walnut inside. One of them surrounded by walnut. It's got the cherry inside. They came out very nice. I'm very pleased with them. Some of the issues I had with the earlier ones I was able to resolve. I got a better handle on my the size of my strips. I got a better handle on my clamping. Still have a lot of things I want to try and figure out on this. One of the next things I'm going to do is actually take one of these and cut it and make a box out of it. So I'd love it if you come back and watch that. I'd appreciate it if you like the video, please click like. If you would, please subscribe. Click the notification bell so you'll know about the next ones that come up. I'd love to have you come back. It's been a lot of fun.